everyone, and welcome to this episode of the Art of Creation show, where we look at different possibilities for creating a life and a living that can actually work for you. And today we have our special guest, Alison Cox. And, you know, this is such a fun, wild and wacky conversation about a topic that I really get, you know, there are a lot of different things. Like, some people may be really curious about entities. Some people may have an adamant sense of like, there's no such thing. And there may be some people who are a little bit creeped out by the possibility of anything that could be an entity. So, Alison, welcome to the show. And I would love to just start out. Well, first of all, let me do my job. So my first job is actually to just let people know that you are a certified facilitator in Talk to the Entities, which is a body of work that does play with the energies of entities. And so you are traveling the world, working with people, facilitating entities both with and without bodies. And so now that people have that information, I'd love to start out just with the question of, what is it that you perceive as entities? What do you know about what entities are? And can we just begin the conversation there?
Yes. Yeah,
cool.
We can start there. Entities can mean a whole slew of different things. When people think of entities as in ghosts or talk to the entities, there's a little ghost figure on like as the little motto guy. And so there are entities that are people, but an entity in general is just anything that is defined. So for instance, your business can be an entity. They actually call businesses entities in this reality talk. Your business could be an entity, a book could be an entity, or a song, or really anything that you get an idea of, you start to put things into action to create that thing, and then it becomes its own embodied thing on this planet. That's an entity also. And also by definition, so there are people entities, there's other different kind of entities, and then there's also embodied entities. So by definition of what an entity is, you and I are also an entity just moving this body around.
Cool. So what I hear you saying actually is that when we use the word entities in this conversation, we're actually talking about a collection of energies that can come together to create really anything, whether we perceive it or don't perceive it, in physical and also in non-physical reality.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
yeah, and that can get complicated too.
Cool. So well, so now that we have our training wheels of like, okay, so maybe this is actually not just about I see dead people, right? Like, it can be. and it sounds like there's actually even a lot more to this than just that. So you and I were talking about the topic for this call or this episode, and you were offering the 3 things that entities will never ask of you. And
yeah,
so,
and I think, go ahead. Yeah.
You know, I was just going to say, so where do we even begin that conversation? And what are these 3 things?
So it was funny when we first started talking, I thought I had said 3 things entities will ever ask of you. And then it got turned into never, which I'm like, that's weird. I don't remember saying that. But how does it get any better? And let's talk about that too. So now we can kind of split it into 2 things. I'm like, that's so fun. So people, entities. So there's oftentimes we don't notice them, but we can perceive them. If you ever have like anxiety, or you actually hear voices in your head, or you just have these thoughts that don't quite feel light or like they're yours, or they kind of make you feel gross. Oftentimes, not all the time, but oftentimes you're perceiving other people's thoughts, feelings, and emotions, either in bodies, people like your neighbors, or out of bodies, entities that are just floating around somewhere. So, or in your house. So the one thing you want to remember is that entities that will actually contribute to you, there's entities will say anything. It just depends on the entity. They're just like people. Some people are liars. Some people are really nice. Some people are assholes. Some people are really kind. They're all over the board. So just because they don't have bodies anymore or you can't see them does not mean that they know more than you or that they're really kind, or that they won't lie, or they're not like jokesters. There's lots of jokester entities, and there are lots of them that want to contribute and help and assist you in everything you do. So if you happen to hear or perceive any of these three things, you know that an entity that wants to help you is never going to say these three things to you. And the first thing I thought of was, it's never going to ask you to harm others or yourself. So if you're thinking of harming others or harming yourself, an entity that's contributing to you and others is never going to ask you to do that. That's just you can actually just ask that entity to go away and know that it has no power over you, because it doesn't. You can tell entities to do anything you'd like, and none of them have more power than you. So that's number one, because a lot of people have fear of, from the movies. Movies say that entities will harm you or haunt you or rattle your doors and they'll get so mad. I can't wait to see that one movie though, of the lady that built a house for like each entity, and then they get so angry that they like blow down all the doors and try to kill everyone. I'm like, that's insane. And I want to go there. I think it's in New York.
Yeah, well, what's the value of that? Hey, if that's a contribution to you, right? I mean, what?
Right.
Everything is the opposite of what it appears to be. That's right.
So her point of view really got rolling in the construction of that house. So they will never ask you to harm others or yourself, the ones that are contributing to you, or playing with you. And the second thing, number two, is they will never tell you that they know more or have more power than you, or that anything else does. You actually get to choose. Your life is your choose your own adventure, which is literally choose your own adventure. And
yeah,
there's growing up, and we've learned that others know more than us, and we go to school to learn more because we don't know enough and all this stuff. When actually, I want to say when we become a certain age, but not really. We kind of know all the time, or we have known. We just haven't got to exercise that tool before. You know everything that is going to work the best in your life and the best for you. So no entity actually knows better than that than you do, better about that than you do. And some entities will try to get you to do things that maybe aren't in your best interest, or try to gain power or control over you. It's not scary. You just have to start asking, like, okay, if I was really being me, would I be choosing this right now? Or is something else trying to get me to do this? And then tell them to go away. No big deal. Or if you have those thoughts of if someone else, even in a body, or a bully or anything like that, is trying to get you to do something, trying to get power over you, tell them to go away. It's same in body, out of body. And the third thing, again, entities, these are like entities that are contributing to you will never tell you that you're wrong, or that you suck, or that you can't, or that you should quit. A lot of those thoughts go through people's minds all the time, and oftentimes those are just, it can be, it's not always, those are entities that don't want to lose, again, control over what you guys have together, or the control they have over you, or if you're about to change someone else's life in a way they've never expanded into before, their entities might try to talk to you and control you and keep you out. So you just want to keep, if something tells you that you can't, there isn't anything you can't do. So don't listen to anything in your head that tells you you can't, even if you think it's yourself.
Yeah, well, and that's kind of the question that comes up next for me is, you know, for people who are just starting this conversation and just starting to look at this, you know, I can kind of hear the question of like, well, how can I tell if there's actually an entity present, or if I'm just talking to myself? So what are some of the ways that we can begin to recognize if there are entities, or one or multiple entities present?
This took me a while to decipher, and it still does. I'm like, oh yeah, that's not me. It's just a lot of practice and acknowledging, and playing with all of this. So when you do just start practicing with any thought that comes into your head during the day, or in the morning, or at night. A lot of times it's easier for entities to get through to you at night when you're sleepy and your defenses are all kind of down. But you just want to ask. There's a tool in Access Consciousness, as you know, the light and heavy tool. So you can start with that. So anything that makes you feel light is true. Anything that makes you feel heavy is actually not true. So you can just ask, if a thought comes into your head like, I'm hungry, be like, okay, I'm hungry. Am I hungry? Is this me or someone else? Lighter. It feels lighter that it's someone else. Is this an entity or someone else? Lighter that it's an entity. Awesome. It's an entity. So you just acknowledge that it's an entity, and then you go from there. Okay, well, this isn't, do I actually want to eat this thing this entity wants to eat, or should I choose something else? Or things like that. So there's the light and heavy tool just to kind of play with getting to know if it's an entity or if it's something else, like someone else's thought, or perhaps just something that you've been stuck on, or who knows what, or every time you go in the kitchen, you get hungry because your mom did that. There's all different reasons, but to know if it's an entity, just ask entity or something else, truth, and which one just feels lighter, heavier. And you can't get it wrong. There's no getting it wrong. If you get it wrong, who cares? If you get it wrong and there wasn't an entity before, maybe you'll pull one right in and then you'll be right, you know?
Cool. So, so when you say pull one in, I've heard you talk about having a team. So, you know, so can you tell us a little bit about what, you know, how that can work and what that can look like, and how people can start playing with that if it's fun for them?
Yeah. So your team in Access Consciousness and in Talk to the Entities is a whole series of classes. It was created by Shannon O'Hara, the daughter of the founder of Access Consciousness, Gary Douglas. So growing up, she was lucky enough to have him as her father and got to play with these tools since day one. And what they have said, or what I've learned in her classes, and now that I get to practice on my own, is your team is a group, or a group of entities. They're kind of like, I call them my peeps. They're like your peeps that just want to help you, and they're not going to assist you in anything that you do unless you ask for it. So in other words, people call them your guides or your guardian angels or things like that. In Talk to the Entities, we like to call them our teammates, or my peeps, to take the significance off of it so that they can actually give you more. The less significance you have about anything and the more play that you instill in everything, the easier it gets and the faster it works. So your teammates, they literally are just these entities that are sitting there waiting for you to ask contribution from, or ask for them to help you. Does that make sense? So if you want to make more money, say, hey team, could you assist me in making more money? Or hey team, who really would be kind for me in a relationship? Can you help me find that person? Hey team, my garden is not growing. Could you help me? What do I need to do in order to make this grow better? Or who do I need to hire? They can help you with anything. So they can't, I've heard Shannon say before, like, they can't kick the ball in the goal for you, but they can give you a pass, an assist. They can assist.
Cool.
I used to play soccer.
Yeah, me too. So what I hear you saying is that they're not actually going to live your life and choose for you, right? We talk a lot in this show about choice creates, right? And so you still are the one choosing, and the team is there that when you ask for information, when you ask for greater awareness, that they're actually contributing to what you're able to perceive and know and be to actually create what it is. But you actually still have the power to choose.
You have all the choice. In fact, they will not choose for you, and they will almost let you mess up enough until you ask. Like, they're not just going to go in and stop something that you're creating because you're maybe not being the smartest you ever were at that point in time. They're going to be like, could you please ask us already? But they will never interfere unless you ask.
I just see like the panel behind the one-sided mirror, and they're all like, oh, look how cute. Look what she's doing now. Wow, what an interesting choice, huh? You think she's going to call on us today?
Going.
I don't know. You think? Exactly. Like, they're like, oh, wait, maybe she's going to ask us. No, she didn't ask. Jeez. Oh, so close. So what an invitation. Yeah, what an invitation to just keep asking and keep asking, if there's not ease, like even just, oh, okay, so what else could I choose here? What could I be aware of here? Who'd like to help me? Who'd like to assist me here? That's really...
You can even ask for entities that are better than you at what you're trying to create to come and help you with that. Yep.
Are there any mediocre entities out there that want to just help me cycle in frustration? Because, like, how fun would that be? Not. No, they're fired from my team. Cool.
Exactly.
So we can actually recruit entities on our team that are going to assist us with creating more ease and joy and awareness, all kinds of things. Now, what about if there is an entity that we're not loving on our team? Like, what if there's an entity that we become aware of and they're actually not contributing? You said we don't have to be scared of them. They can't take our power away. And yet, what can we be aware of there if we do perceive that there's something that's not really assisting us?
Yep, totally. You just check in and you want to ask, just like, well, not just like, because again, in like when you grow up, you're taught like time equals relationship pretty much. And the longer you're with someone, you have to be their friend. So if you became friends with someone in kindergarten and you still know them and you're like 30, it's like, oh, well, I still have to be their friend kind of thing because we've been friends ever since we were kids and it's not allowed to break up. Does that make sense? So a lot of people do that. We're not allowed to break up with those people, even though they are like the downfall of our entire being. No. Just kidding. I like to be dramatic. So with entities, you definitely want to check in. There can be entities that you asked to help you in certain situations when you were younger, whether it was with bullying or money or being alone, any of that stuff. You might have called in imaginary friends that you just started having conversations with in your head, or perhaps you saw them or you didn't see them, or all kinds of things. And those entities will stick with you. Like if you ask them to do the job, they will do it. Someone will. It doesn't mean they're the best one for the job. So you want to start asking. So again, we'll just go with money. Like if your money or your finances are a little bit like weird and something just won't change. This actually happened with me. I woke this entity up or something that I had for a long time. One day I was like, God, I really want to go. I think I have to go bankrupt. That's it. And for 3 days, like out of nowhere, I'm like, yep, bankruptcy. That's the only choice. I am going bankrupt. I am bankruptcy. Yes. I've looked up lawyers and all kinds of stuff. And I'm like, wait a minute. And the whole time I'm watching myself think, I'm like, this is weird, but it's also kind of entertaining. Like, what is going on? I'm like, okay. So finally by the third day, I'm like, is this an entity or something else? Well, and I called my friend who's also an access consciousness facilitator. I was like, I know this is heavy. It's not true for me. Is this an entity? She's just like, yeah, I think so. That feels light, but it's still weird. I'm like, okay. Called another friend. I'm like, what's going on? Clear this thing. Actually, that's two different stories. But anyway.
There is no time. It's all one big thing anyway.
But anyway, I was like cleaning my house, thinking about this bankruptcy thing. And I was like, wait, is this an entity? Because I was acting so weird and not me. I'm like, it's an entity. I'm like, okay, was this an entity that I hired to control my money when I was younger or something? Because that's just kind of what popped up. I'm like, and I got a big yes, a big light. I was like, so I hired this entity when I was younger to take care of my money, and now that's not working so well. It made me very, like, it would make me, I allowed it to make me very passive aggressive with money, very like poverty, very needy, and just not face my financial situation at all. So that day I was like, all right, time to go. Cleared the entity, and everything changed ever since. So it can be an entity. I'm like, what was the original question?
Yeah. So
My
and
brain
so
went.
so you're right there. And so to clear it, I know earlier in the week, up this whole week, we've been posting a little bit or something every day here on the Art of Creation Show page on Facebook. And one of the things that we posted was like a mini process for clearing an entity.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
it's just some questions. So, do you, in case anyone hasn't seen it, you want to just bring them through that little exercise?
Totally. There's so the other title that we were talking about before, the three things that entities will ever ask of you
Yeah.
is either to clear them, communicate, or to receive. And that's kind of the motto of talk to the entities. And usually about whenever you run into an entity, about 80% of the entities you run into or communicate with are just going to want to be cleared. And you don't need any, how do you, in the movies, how do they say to do it? Like with music and fire and I don't know. You don't need any of that stuff.
Maybe some goat hooves?
Yeah, goat hooves.
Maybe.
Chicken's blood. You don't need any of that stuff. You literally just ask them questions. So, and it's the easiest. That clearing that you read that you posted on your wall is not just a mini clearing. That's the clearing. That's one of the clearings.
Yeah.
So you want to ask an entity, truth, who are you? So you ask the entity who they are. So they get to like say like, oh, I'm so and so. This is my identity. This is my place and time. This is who I am. Half the time they don't know that they're dead or that they can't choose more because they're stuck in an identity. So you want to ask, who are you? Truth. Then you want to ask, who were you before that? So when you ask it, who were you before that? It has to remember. It's like he or she or it has to remember like, oh, I was so-and-so before that. You want to ask again, okay, cool, thank you. Who were you before that? Oh, before that, I was so-and-so. Okay, who were you before that? Before that? Oh, I was that. So you start allowing the entity to remember that it was different things at different times. It wasn't just this identity stuck in this one space and time. So then after you ask it a few times, you can either just ask it 2 or 3 times or wait till the energy shifts if you can perceive that. If not, once you get bored, then you ask, okay, who will you be in the future? So that the entity, once it knows that it can be different things, you ask it, who will it be in the future? So you give it a choice. You be a space to allow the entity to know that it can choose something in the future, whatever it would like to choose, whether it's on this planet again or somewhere else, embodied, disembodied. But you clear their identity so that they have freedom of choice.
Cool.
So cool.
So they can actually keep the identity if they choose to. They recognize that that's where they are, and they can also choose to either move on or do something, be something else, or not be tied to what they've been choosing. And I noticed you said truth in the beginning, so that's getting them to have to tell you the truth. What's true for them? Okay, cool. That's really cool. Awesome. So.
Yep.
So now that sounds kind of like when there's an entity that is sort of identifying itself with a past lifetime or some sort of a physical form. Now, what about, you also mentioned that entities can be a song or a book or a piece of art, something like that, that's not actually attached to something that we would consider like a humanoid form. So what can you tell us about that, especially, for those who are watching who are very creative or who have a lot of information constantly coming through and things to write, things to paint, things to create. What's a little insight as to what we could know about what's going on there?
This is the weirdest idea I just had, but I'm like, you could make a baby book. Just kidding. Of your babies that you would like to bring into the world. So your baby entity book. So we do. When we're creative, we have all these ideas, and those are literally little seeds that would like to be grown.
Yeah.
So you want to get a book, if that works for you, put it in your notes, put it on sticky notes. None of them work for me, so I'm scattered as hell, but get a book and write down your ideas. Any idea that pops in your head, those are all the beginning of different entities or creations. And then you want to you can literally just ask those creations which one wants to happen first. Which one's the easiest? Who would let me know what time you would like to be sprung, or when would you like to be created, or what do you require? And then it's kind of like watering. So a plant is an entity. It's like watering a plant with the book. Like if you are like, I need to write a book by July 13th because I want to be famous by the end of the year, or something like that.
Oh,
That might
ouch.
not be that might not be what your book has in mind, or what actually the grand timing of everything has in mind, or what would work the best with the universe for that to happen at that time in that way, blah, blah, blah. So you want to ask now or later. Okay, book that will make me famous. There aren't any conclusions there. Now or later. Let me know when's the right time, or when would you like to contribute? What can I contribute to you? And like the little whispers will start happening. Like the universe just works like that. Everything will start letting you know how and when, either by whispers or not whispers, by like knocking you over the head, who knows? But your job is just to ask, and then the universe's job is the how. It will give you everything required to grow all of these things, and then your job is literally like Dr. Dane here's class Maestro. Your class is to maestro everything into place to create everything that you're asking for, or conduct it.
Yes. Okay. So really being open and willing to receive. So when we ask, the whole ask and receive piece of when we ask for something to show up, also being aware that it may not show up the way you've decided it will. So it may look totally different, and being open to perceiving the energy that matches. So when something shows up that is actually a match, that you are willing to receive it and to create with that.
Yeah.
And be congruent with that. Cool.
Yeah.
So I'd love to open it up. I'm going to look here to see if we have any questions yet. I would love to open it up to anyone who's watching. If anybody has any questions specifically for you, let's see. So Bettina, hi. We have a question from Bettina. She asks, do you get more aware of entities when you do a lot of bars? So the access bars, it's a body process where we lightly touch points on the head to release all kinds of thoughts, feelings, and emotions that have been pretty much locked into place over lifetimes. And so do we become more aware of entities as we have our bars run? Or what can you say to that, Alison?
Definitely. When you get your bars run, and yes, the bars are an amazing body process that hopefully I get run at least once a week. I try, because they help to delete all of your thoughts, feelings, and emotions and make life easier, especially when you're dealing with entities. If you have if you're even watching this, you most likely have a capacity with entities. Otherwise, this would probably go past your radar.
Especially if you're still watching it at this point.
Definitely have a capacity with entities. But when you get your bars run, it does make you more aware. So you're more aware of everyone's thoughts, feelings, emotions, including entities, including things you weren't willing to receive. So the bars opens up your capacity to receive. Yeah. So if you weren't willing to see, know, be, perceive, or receive entities before, your bars will start allowing, now I can't talk. Back up, guys. Getting your bars run will start to allow you to receive capacities with entities that weren't there before. So definitely I would say yes, the bars helps with perceiving entities much more. It can also, entities, there's oftentimes entities are just kind of, whether it's from past lifetimes or just because you had a thought and that entity liked that vibration, they'll kind of stay around you or stick around you sometimes. So that's why it's good to clear them pretty often, if it works for you. But getting your bars run actually helps to clear entities of their own volition just by getting your bars run, because you actually just clear the energies that they're stuck to in the first place. So voila, the bars helps you clear entities and helps you feel lighter.
And clears all the blah, 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 that gets stuck in your world. And so that is actually the bars class is actually the prerequisite for the class that you teach. So we're super lucky here in Austin, Texas. Alison, you're going to be visiting us, and you're going to have an intro class, which is actually available via Zoom too, right? So anybody, anywhere on the planet can come to your intro class on March 16th. And then 17th and 18th, you have your 2-day class, the beginning of Talk to the Entities. And that is that you do have a bars class requirement prior to that class, correct? Yeah.
Yes, and there's classes all over the world,
including
a bunch in Austin.
Yes, we have a ton in Austin coming up, which, you know, how did we get so lucky to have people playing here? And yes, wherever you are in the world, we have, you know, we're in over 170 countries, and it's amazing to see how everything is spreading across the globe. How do we get so lucky?
Totally.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say also, and then Bettina, I'll get back to your question really quick, because I think I get more what you're saying now. Just to end it, or I don't even know what time it is, but
and thank you, also, Jenny. Jenny is saying that your classes are amazing. So in case there was any question about that, we have confirmation. It's official.
Hooray. Also, Shannon O'Hara is having a advanced class in Brazil the following month, which the class that I teach the beginning is the prerequisite for that class, and those classes are off the charts. They both are off the charts. It's like, how did we get so lucky? Because they just kind of piggyback off each other. But that class in Brazil is also going to be live streamed. If you can either go to Brazil, which I think I'm going to do now.
How awesome!
And then, or you can live stream that one as well. And so, Bettina. Oh, so sometimes the bars can wake up sleeping entities that kind of, again, if you were a child and you hired an entity to take over a certain aspect of your life, like bullying, we'll say, that entity will wake up and do its job. When it feels you getting a certain vibration, like when it feels you getting scared or something, it will wake up. Or if it feels you getting attacked, it will wake up, and it can protect you by making you feel or making you act age inappropriate or angry or whatever it thinks it needs to do to get that thing to go away that you asked it to protect you from. And if that's not working for you, then it's time to clear that entity. And sometimes it's hard to clear. It can be. How easy can it be to clear your own entities? Or sometimes it's like easier to call a friend or a facilitator. There's Talk to the Entities facilitators all over the world. You can look any of them up on talktotheentities.com.
Yeah.
And everybody's awesome.
And we'll also have in the show notes, we will have information on how they can contact you if they'd like to have a session with you or ask any additional questions after the show is over. Of course, everyone is welcome to come to Austin. That link to the event page is actually on the Facebook page for the Art of Creation show as well. And if you're interested in Shannon O'Hara's class and you want to come to Alison's class as the prerequisite and then go on down to Brazil or live stream it, the link to that class is also in the Austin event page, which is on the Art of Creation show page. So there's lots of information, and we'll put all the links below as well. And also put a link to this book, which is actually the Talk to the Entities book by Shannon O'Hara. And so you'll have lots of things that you can play with and look at. So we also had another, so Bettina also says, what happens if we refuse to be aware of entities who want to get in contact with us? What can we be aware of there, Alison?
Well, either that kind of happens all the time. So it can show up as anxiety or getting sick or who knows, like all these different things. There's so many, or like a pain in your knee. Sorry, the sun's getting crazy in here. It can show up as pains in your body. So when an entity, I'm like, wait, I don't know if I should go here yet. The earth. So if the earth is trying to get a hold of you, it will like shoot pain up into your body like nobody's business if you aren't listening to the subtle ways it was trying to get a hold of you in the first place. Same with all kinds of entities. They can, depending, not all entities even know how to get a hold of you. So they could just be yelling through a glass wall forever, and you'd never know the difference until you start asking. Or some are like, hey, I'm gonna fling this book off a shelf to get your attention. It just depends. It's all over the board. Oh, what did I see? Oh, I don't know. There's a bunch of movies that are really cool, like really, really cool examples of that. The Sixth Sense.
Yes.
If you haven't, I might spoiler alert it because it's kind of old. If you haven't seen it, sorry. But
I see dead people.
First, like, I see dead people. It's the I See Dead People movie.
Yes.
At first, like, his capacities with entities, the entities were trying to get a hold of him, and he was like, no, this is terrible, I'm a freak, and everything sucks. Until he was pretty much forced to listen to this one entity, and she, like, died in front of him and did whatever happened to her in real life and showed him that, and then asked him to go tell everybody who actually killed her. And that's when he found out that his capacity with entities was a gift, and he started listening to all of them. So it can show up as pain, it might feel like torture, it might feel like you're a loser or a weirdo or all this stuff, and all of that stuff feels really heavy. So is it actually true? Or if you do have a capacity with entities, what aren't you looking at that if you would just look at it and be with it and play with it would change everything into play, light, money, who knows what.
Yeah, it sounds like that, like the more that you're resisting, the more almost difficult it becomes for your body as you're resisting knowing, or, knowing what you actually know, or perceiving what you're actually perceiving, trying to block it out. So, so you were talking about, sometimes they could be there banging on the glass saying, ask me a question, I'm here, and you may never know that they're there. So what are some, as we're beginning to ask questions and as we're beginning to kind of dip our toe into this possibility with entities, what are some of your favorite questions to ask, to invite a team that contributes and to play with them in a way that's going to create greater in your life?
Oh man, I ask them all the time. I actually help whenever. One of the coolest things I've been doing lately, just because stuff has been coming up, and like if I have a doubt about anything, about what I'm creating, or about money, or about friendship, or anything, any of that crap that comes up, I actually don't have to deal with it all by myself. Like, yes, you can return to sender, like we say in Access, or yes, I can say that's not mine, but if it's still there, I'm like, that's not mine, I'm fine, but I'm not fine. I can acknowledge that I'm not fine and ask my team to help me melt that stuff away. Okay. And it really works. It is the coolest thing. So it's as easy as that. Hey, can you help me melt some of this crap? Like, here, I'm showing it to you. I'm acknowledging I have it. I'm not judging myself anymore. Will you please assist me in releasing this? Wow. I think you just did. Like,
that was awesome. And I love, even just the energy on that word, melting it away, my whole body just was like, thank you for that. That's so fun. Yay. So awesome. So I wonder, does anybody else have any questions? Oh, and of course, Bettina would like to know, will you please come to Germany? So how much fun can you have in Germany? So what other questions? Is there anybody else out there watching now live that has any questions that they would like to ask Alison? Alison, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, just another question I love to ask my team, or any entity really that is wanting to contribute, is what can we create together we've never considered before? Every morning, what can we create today we've never considered possible? And you'd be surprised, and just no point of view, just ask. Really cool and strange things show up, and fun things, and you're like, huh. And the more you ask and the more you acknowledge, like, oh, hey, that was weird, that showed up. Was that me and my team, or me and entities? Yes, cool, thank you so much. The more you acknowledge and are grateful for them, the more they'll want to give you too, if you want to play in that realm.
Cool. Now, you mentioned protection a couple times, and I know that a lot of times in the metaphysical community, or in circles where people are talking about, paranormal or whatever words you want to use from this reality, you know, there is also this thing of like, you know, having to protect yourself, right? And we talked about the bars as being one way to open up our awareness. And as we're opening our awareness, we open up our capacity to perceive different energies, to include those that are entities. And then, but are there things that make us more susceptible to entities that we're not actually consciously inviting? Is there anything to be aware of there?
So you don't actually need protection from anything. That's kind of a big conversation that we get into a lot in Access Consciousness.
Yeah.
But our point of view, so if you have the point of view that entities are bad or evil or will harm you, then you will invite more of that into your life.
So choice creates?
Like, choice creates again. So if you want to choose believing that, that stuff could happen. It doesn't necessarily always happen, or I've never had it happen, and I used to be terrified of entities that they were all going to murder me and jump through my window and burn my house down growing up. I had like the biggest fear of entities ever, and none of that ever happened. So
yay! So you get to be here today. How awesome.
Be better. But again, it's the more you're aware, the more, another thing. So when you think of protection, you think of walls, and the more walls you put up, the more stuff has, the more you put up, the more things can fight against that thing that you put up. Yeah. The more space you are and no point of view, things just go right through you. They literally like can't touch you or hurt you. You are space. You are joy. You are happiness. You are an infinite being, and you are invincible. But when you do have the point of view that you need to put a barrier up against something and protect yourself against something, you're almost inviting that thing in to fight against you.
That which you resist persists.
That which you resist persists, and that's why.
Now, what about, I've also heard people talk about drugs and alcohol, and how
yes,
using drugs and alcohol to certain ends or in a certain quantity can also have an effect on your experience with entities. So what can you share with us about that?
Yep. Drugs and alcohol, especially when you're drinking alcohol into like a blackout oblivion, and drugs, they can bring you to a state where you just allow entities to take over your body. If anyone has ever said like, hey, you weren't really acting yourself last night, or you're taking drugs or using alcohol to alter your state, your being, to change your personality because of whatever reason, you're inviting other entities in to take over, and those are the ones that will actually do the most harm to you and your body. So you definitely, if that feels like that's ever happened, you want to clear those entities. They don't all, like if you have, it just takes practice too. Like almost nobody can, there are people who can handle their entities on drugs and alcohol, and there's people that can definitely not. And you could come to Denver and see all kinds of examples of that, of people talking down the road to themselves. It's so cool. I use that as class examples. But it's not right or wrong. It's just they were unconscious, or they are still unconscious, and the entities will actually ask them to keep taking the drug because they like that vibration. Any entity that died on a drug is going to look for that same vibration in a body. So if you take drugs, or if you do a lot of alcohol, those entities will start to surround you, and they will say, keep drinking, or take another pill, or go buy a crack pipe, or I don't know.
Yeah, just one more, or I need a drink, I need a drink. Yeah, more.
So that you will never be conscious ever again, and they have total control over you.
Okay, so it's when you're actually using these things to go out, to go unconscious, essentially, like not necessarily passed out, but when you're going to a place where you are no longer consciously choosing and consciously creating, and exactly, and in your own power, then you're actually giving your power away to the possibility of another entity who is looking for that type of body to come in and take control. Cool.
Exactly. If you're not in control, something else will come take control.
Yeah, cool. Awesome. So we also have another question. Okay, so we have a question here from Katie. Do you identify a lead guide or entity that helps coordinate your team? Great question.
Cool. I don't. So in Access Consciousness, well, not real. This is kind of like a side note. So one day Gary decided, instead of calling the people that work with him in Access Consciousness a team, they decided to call it a dazzle. And a dazzle is like a group of zebras that work together as a team. And depending on what's required, what they're doing, if they're grazing, if they're running, if they're migrating, whatever is required, different zebras in the gaggle become the leader of that team. So whoever is more capable of whatever you're asking for, whatever is required of your team, whichever entity is more capable is ask that entity to become the leader or lead the team for that specific thing. Or if there's a few of them that have the capacity to contribute the most, ask them, or just play with it. It's totally playing, but the same with like, just like that. Like, the one that's most capable is going to be the leader.
They were looking at the gaggle of geese and how the geese fly in formation, and that there's always a lead goose, but it's not always the same goose. And so when it's required, they fall back, someone else comes up, and so it's, you know, you're all contributing together. But a dazzle sure does sound a lot more fun than a gaggle.
Right. I kind of like gaggle.
I know.
And in actuality, you are the lead entity of your team.
Yeah, cool. Really cool. So thank you for that question. And also, awesome. Margaret is asking, when entities are around, do they let you know they are there by scent? Do they offer you scents? Like aromas? Can you smell them?
Absolutely, they definitely can. I'm like backing away from the sun. Hold on, let me back away a little further. They definitely can. I have woken up. It's also, you want to ask, so I'm not going to just tell you what's true for you and what's not true for others. Like, if it's never happened for someone, maybe that's just not how they receive entities. So it can be different smells, ringing in your ears, like sneezing a billion times in a row, or all kinds of stuff. But they definitely can send aromas. I smell only a few times, I guess, and I haven't smelled her in a while, but this old lady perfume come through my window, and I'm on the 4th floor, and there is like, no way this perfume should be coming through. And I always, whenever I smell that smell, I'm like, entity or something else, entity, and then ask her what's up, and if she wants to clear, communicate, receive, and just play with that. Yeah, so that's definitely.
I've actually heard a lot of that. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yep. People say that all the time. Yep.
Yeah. Or
if
like
you smell smoke in a room. There's different types of entities. You just want to ask, okay, is this actually? There's stink entities. You can clear those and have your room smell better for no reason at all.
Oh, that's so cool. So what about? Okay, cool. And what about like magical, right? Like what about magical creatures? Like what about you know, there are actually a lot of people that play with fairy energy and dragon energy and all kinds, you know, menehune in Hawaii. You're welcome, Margaret. So what do you know about, or does Talk to the Entities even address this?
Absolutely.
Okay.
In the beginning class, we address those entities. You could call them earth beings or elementals, or whatever they are. Let's see, what can we address right now? So yes, those energies are very real. Some were actually had bodies before here. They might not anymore. Some people still have their DNA in their bodies. They might, the more you ask for those energies to show up, the more they're going to want to come play with you. Right now, the earth has been pretty battered and raped and abused. So a lot of those energies are kind of dying out. So the more you actually, if you have a perception of those and you want to play with those beings more, and you actually do play with those beings, turn it up or ask for those beings to start showing up and contributing to your life, your house, your plants, your animals, your body. Because they I think the biggest thing that kind of keeps them from showing up is our expectation of how they have to show up. So any expectation of what they look like, what they can do, who they are, all of those identities that we've placed on them, once you let all of those go and just let them show up however they're going to show up, in whatever form they're going to show up, they can start giving you a lot more. And then there's also Shannon O'Hara has a class, I think Earth Beings or Beings of the Earth or something like that. It's in the shop in Talk to the Entities, on talktotheentities.com. We also talk about it in the beginning class. And then Shannon's also having a huge, one day, humongous Earth, God, I can't remember any of the names, advanced Earth class. You actually have to take the advanced class. So you have to take bars, intro night, beginning, advanced class, and then you can take this one day Earth Being amazing class, which I cannot wait. I took her Beings of Light class. That might be another class that you would like. That's also available for purchase on the Talk to the Entities website. The Beings of Light class was out of this world, literally, and with this book. So great. So I'm so excited to take this next advanced class with her about the elemental beings. And yes, they are.
And that brings me to my next question. So if we have these earth beings and earth entities, what about angels? I mean, we have a lot of people that that are working and playing with angels and with angel energy. So what, from the Talk to the Entities lens, what could we know about that?
Yeah, the angels, we also talk about that in the beginning class too, angels and demons. But the angels, so again, there's a lot of significance placed on what an angel is. And then the people that do play with angels, obviously, would not get mad at me for saying, I don't know, if you have, if anything makes you angry or, this isn't coming out right. So angels, what do you know about angels and all the significance that everyone's placed on angels? Would you just be willing to let that go?
Anywhere we're trying to make angels right. Yeah. Cool.
Yeah. Totally.
So everywhere we're putting a human overlay on the energy of angels.
Totally.
Okay, cool.
I could have said it better myself.
Yeah. Awesome.
Human overlay. Yes. So also a lot of the white light beings are the angel energies. And then you can ask different questions about that. You can start playing with those energies and see what shows up for you, because literally nobody speaks to entities the same. That's why Talk to the Entities, the beginning and the advanced classes, is just to get you to step into your capacities with how you interact with entities. And it might be in your mind's eye, you might actually hear things. It's all over the board.
So it's really one more way of tapping into knowing what you know and kind of claiming, owning, and acknowledging what you perceive already. And what I love about what you're saying is this whole no significance thing, right? Like, I really get that a lot of what we make weird and scary and have judgments about when we look at things that would qualify as an entity, as per this conversation, it really is all just where we have judgments and points of view, and where we really are making those more significant than just perceiving the energy and asking, okay, so cool. So what's possible with this that I've never considered or that I've never been willing to receive?
Yep, exactly. Yeah, I have goosebumps. Good. Yes.
Cool. So we do have another question from Bettina. Can entities of the earth be part of your team?
What do you know? For me, that's a big light. Yes. It just depends. Ooh.
Yeah. It's awesome.
Absolutely. Cool. And were you perhaps one of those entities in a past lifetime, light or heavy? Who knows what? There's so many places you can go with that, and so many adventures, that if you just ask and just use the light and heavy tool, you start to get so many awarenesses and get to invite that many more playmates, energies in to just create with you. Yeah.
So when you were starting to play with all of this, and and judgment came up around it. Because I get that, you know, when we start looking at something like this, especially like if we've been educated and like we know what's real, right? And then we're looking at like ghosts and fairies and angels, oh my, like I get that there can be a lot of judgment on ourselves, and also like, you know, on ourselves not wanting other people to judge, you know, being wackadoo, right? So what are some of the tools that you like to use to get yourself out of judgment of that, so you can actually just be aware and not have a point of view about it?
Well, I've kind of coined this term, and I don't know if this will help anyone, but I kind of like to happiness torture people. So if it makes me happy,
is that like tickle
and they're
torture?
like being weird about it, I kind of do it more, and it's my own happiness torture. I'm like, so if you do feel judged, it's like, okay, what would create more in the situation? First of all, what would create the most? You can always ask consciousness to contribute, or your team to contribute. Like right before this call, I'm like, please don't let me say anything I shouldn't. You have permission to override me. Oh my God.
Well, you never know what people are asking to hear. So, you know, what would it take to just, you know that what is, and keep on moving on.
Yeah, but I literally will. I've kind of, with my parents, hi guys, if you're watching, I kind of had to break it in slowly, and now they're like, okay. And now my dad's even like passing out my cards to people at work, my ghost cards. I'm like, thanks, Dad. He's like, I don't know, but yes, I love you and I support you. I'm like, thank you. So just play with people, like, what invitation can you be to what you know? And also anywhere where you think that anybody ever has to agree with anything that you know that's true for you, get rid of that, because who cares? As long as you know it's true, you actually have an advantage, whether people agree with you or not. Yeah. So if they don't, then you have a huge advantage over them to just like move past them and create your life, because they're going to slow you down anyway. And why are you waiting for them to get you before you start creating your life?
Yeah, so don't wait. Just
begin. Create.
Just create. That's awesome. Okay, well, Alison, before we wrap up today, is there anything else specifically that you would really like to share with everyone today? And if there are any last questions, please get them in now. Before we wrap up.
Just if this like pings anything, any excitement or lightness, or you have more questions about this, just please start like looking at the videos or reading the Talk to the Entities book, or come to a class, because the more you start to play and create with all of these different energies, now I really have goosebumps, the more they gift to you and receive from you, and it really creates this whole world and this reality as like oneness. It's just another aspect of oneness that a lot of people have been keeping out, but it's there too, whether we want to admit it or not. The entity world that we can't necessarily see is there, so why not play with it? How can it contribute to us, and how can we contribute to it? And what if that's what's required to make the world a better place?
Yes, I will have that. I will have that. Thank you.
Cue the Michael Jackson
I'm
song.
In. That's right. I'm in on that. So awesome. So Alison, you are going to have that intro night that is going to be Zoomed on March 16th. You do have the beginning class on March 17th and 18th here in Austin, Texas. The information will be below. So everyone is invited. We'd love to play with you. Also, if people want to contact you, what's the best way for them to find you?
Either on Facebook, or also I have a website, which I probably need to update, myacousticlife.com.
Yeah, and the link will be in the show notes as well. Yeah. Cool.
You can email me there or on Facebook, either way.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for this. And
thank you.
And for those of you who are watching, you know, definitely go to that event page. If you think you're coming, let us know. We have a whole sheet of information for people who may be coming in from out of town. So we can make it as easy and fun for you as possible. Yeah. And I'll contribute.
I cannot wait.
Yes.
I hear a bunch of clapping right now. I think the
yes. Yeah. Well, and anybody who's heard of the music scene in Austin, there's the South by Southwest Music Festival, which is actually the weekend right before. So if you've always wanted to come to that and get your music listening on, it's an amazing, amazing experience. Austin becomes a destination location for people from all around the world. So why don't you come for the whole week and get your music and your dance on, and then come.
And then we'll clear all your entities afterwards.
And we'll just change the world with a whole bunch of fun. So that's the invitation. And is there anything else, Alison, that you'd like to say before we close?
I think that's it. I can't think of anything right now. Thank you so much for having me on here.
Yes.
It was so fun.
Thank you. And for everybody who joined us live, thank you so much for coming, for playing. Thank you for your questions. For those of you who are watching in the future, of course, we still love your questions. Everyone that contributes to this show, either today or in the future, is a contribution to what we can create on the planet. So ever grateful for you. As always, please subscribe to the YouTube channel. You'll get your updates on when the next episode comes out. We do air every Friday. And please like the Facebook page, The Art of Creation Show, so that you can see who's coming up, and we can give you all kinds of goodies. So thank you, everybody, for playing. I wonder what we'll discover next. Happy choosing, and mwah! It's been amazing.
Thanks,
Thank you
everybody.
so much,
Thank
Alison.
you, Rebecca.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you.